Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the classic Aussie dream, owning a home, maybe a few investment properties, creating a secure future for your family is getting harder to reach? Well, you're not alone. Now, while here in Australia, we don't often talk about the American dream, there's something deeper at play, a universal desire to create a life of meaning, financial independence and freedom. So today I'm joined by Mark Matson, a renowned American entrepreneur, wealth educator, and author of Experiencing the American Dream. Now, before you turn off with the phrase American Dream, I get it. This isn't a US flag flying episode at all. In fact, Mark's message is about something we all care about, taking control of your financial future, transforming your mindset around money, and aligning your wealth with life's purpose. Sure, in Australia, we talk more about buying a home than living the dream, but the principles Mark's going to share with us are going to resonate with you, my viewers and listeners of the Michael Yardney podcast, because they're about creating value, about defeating your money demons, about taking ownership for your financial journey. And they're just as relevant whether you live in West Virginia or West Footscray. And Mark and I are going to chat about why so many people feel stuck, how your mindset can limit or expand your results, and why viewing money as a tool and not as a goal could be the most liberating shift you make. So stick around. This is not just a conversation about money. It's a conversation about your freedom, purpose, and building a life worth living. So let's dive into the show.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment, and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
Mark, welcome to the show. Now, while you're well known in the United States, my Australian-based audience probably won't know much about you. So before we get into the meat of our discussion, please tell us a little bit about you and why we should listen to you about money, finance, and wealth.
Yeah, my name is Mark Matson. I own a company here called Matson Money. I started in 1991. I manage $11.8 billion for investors all over the United States. In addition to that, we invest in over 78 different countries, including Australia, all over the globe for our clients, over 27,000 different holdings. I built the company from zero assets under management with an overhead projector and a yellow pad.
I remember those days.
Yeah, before any real technology, and there was no internet. There was I had a Rolodex and a cell phone with a cord on it. Not a cell phone, but a regular phone with a cord on it. So been through a lot of technology changes, a lot of growth. I wrote a book about the American dream, and the subtitle is How to Invest Your Time, Energy, and Money to Live an Extraordinary Life. And I think it's a global concept.
Well, we're going to leave a link in the show notes to your book and how people can get it. But in Australia, the Australian dream tends to be a home in the suburbs, not necessarily a rags to riches story, but I do think there's a powerful overlap between what drives us. So what does the American dream really mean to you, Mark? Is it still relevant today?
I think it is. There are a lot of people out there I call the American dream haters. My grandfather was one of those people. He thought that all wealth was based on greed, was based on someone taking advantage of someone else. The only way you could get money was to steal it from somebody. He grew up in the hills of West Virginia doing coal mining and working in chemical factories. And my father, on the other hand, who was an entrepreneur 3 times over by the time he was 12, he had a shoe shining business, a newspaper delivery business, and he delivered salve to the coal miners when they came out of the coals. He taught me, on the other hand, that if you work hard, you're committed, you create service for other people, that you live in a country that has great freedom and prosperity and property rights. And that if you help enough people and you focus on them first, then if you help them fulfill their dreams, you'll end up fulfilling yours. So that was kind of the background of what he built into me.
Well, it's interesting because in your book, you've said the great American dream has evolved. Look, if we strip away the flags and the culture, what's the human dream you're writing about in this book, Mark?
Yeah, So the typical American dream is not too different than what you described. It's the house, it's the picket fence, it's 2.6 kids, it's 2 cars in the garage. Those are the material things. But what I discovered really early is that the American dream isn't, and this is very counterintuitive to people, is not materialistic. It's not how much money you have. It's actually a screen by which you see the world. And based on that screen, it will give you the actions that will have you either become an entrepreneur, be successful in life, either work somewhere else and be successful, or the opposite of the American dream is victimhood and entitlement, which disempowers the individual that has that screen. And whichever screen you have, whether you live in Australia, America, or France, that screen will very much determine the actions you're willing to take and the results that you get in life. So my dad taught me, look, nobody owes you anything. You have to provide value to other people first. Work is a virtue. And that if you will look at what you want to create in life and determine what you're willing to give first to other people, then you'll be successful, whether or not you make $40,000 a year or $4 million a year.
Well, it sounds like your dad left you some really great messages there. And it's a theme we often discuss here too, about the psychology of success. And there are some people who revel in other people's failure, while I actually like hanging around people who actually enjoy other people's success. Today, it actually seems like we're more financially anxious. It seems to be the same here in West Footscray, near where I live, Mark, as it is in West Virginia. Is the global mindset more challenged in these economic times? We've got all these geopolitical problems. The media's continuously giving us a continual conveyor belt of negative messages.
Man, look, I always tell people I'm going to be on Fox Business in the morning. But what I always tell people about the media is that the media is not there to help you. They're not there to give you good advice. They're not there to help you live a more powerful life. What they're basically there for is to scare the heck out of you.
Yes.
Because then you'll be watching, your eyeballs will be on the TV or on your cell phone, and then you'll be buying their products. You'll have eyeballs for their advertisers, and they scare you, and then they create this narrative of destruction, pain, and fear, and then that allows them to make money off of you. On the other hand, what I like to tell people is, look, we live in the greatest period of humankind ever on the face of the planet. Even in America, if you make $50,000 a year, you live better than the King of England did 700 years ago. You have medicine, you have hip replacements, you have general anesthesia, you have air conditioning, you have cell phones, you have technology, you have you have so much. And if you can't be happy now with the quality of life that so many people have, this time period in human development, you just can't be happy because we've never had it better. Humankind has never had it better than we have it right now.
I agree. Despite all the challenges happening, we are still living in the best times of history. Now, you've got a theme in your book, Mark, about the purpose of money. What does that look like in practical terms today?
Yeah, the first thing before I get into that conversation is for people to understand, which is counterintuitive for a money manager to say, is that money can't make you happy. And I discovered this when I was really young. I had a client with $5 million. She was miserable. She was always afraid of losing her money. She was afraid someone was going to scam her. She was upset, angry, and the money didn't do her any good. And you look throughout human existence and you can see so many people, whether it was Elvis Presley or Prince or Howard Hughes or these people that had massive money and fame and power, and it didn't do them any good. It actually ended up being a force that ruined their life.
Yes.
So money is a tricky thing. And what I discovered was that, I said, I don't want to spend 40 years helping people manage money if it's not going to make them happy. So what would actually make them happy? And what I discovered was, through reading Viktor Frankl's book and other people, that having a purpose in your life and then using that money to fulfill on that purpose can create amazing amounts of fulfillment and happiness and love. But if you try to just focus on the money without your true purpose in life, then you end up being miserable. And if you have a purpose, then just about any amount of money will do. Because if I had a sick friend in the hospital, I could get on a bus, I could go over there, I could hold their hand, I could be with them, I could, have empathy with them, take care of them. So purpose is crucial. People that have purpose live longer. They have better relationships. They have better immune systems. There's a whole science about purpose. They're more resilient. They're less depressed. They have a better mood. And in the long run, they end up making more money. So having a purpose in life that you can then tie your money to is absolutely critical, because money itself will not make you happy.
Agree with what you're saying. I came from a poor background and I wanted to be a millionaire, and I grew my wealth, and I actually ruined my first marriage, I guess, in many ways by chasing money for the wrong reasons. Because when you get more money, it actually doesn't get rid of the anger. It doesn't get rid of the fact that at the time, I didn't feel worthy or well enough. So I had to keep proving myself. So when I found a purpose for money, it made things very, very different, and enough was enough. So we all have different purposes in life. Well, what's the true purpose of money look like? And maybe you can share some examples from yourself or from some of your clients.
Yeah, well, which one of the exercises we actually talk about in the book, and then I created a 2-day workshop about how to do this. So my purpose is to help other people find their purpose
Interesting.
and to fulfill in their dreams. And my dad always told me, if you focus on other people first and help them fulfill in their dreams, then you'll automatically get your dream and you won't have to worry about it. The opposite of that is, and we can all do it. We can all from time to time feel entitled. I remember when I was in my 30s, I started having a lot of pain in my hips, and I went to the doctor and he said, "You got osteonecrosis." I'm like, "Doc, what is that?" He said, "Well, osteo meaning bone and necrosis meaning death." And what went through my mind was, why me? Why me? Why me? And I really went into a mild form of depression that I was going to lose my hips in my 30s, and self-pity. And I went to a blood doctor, and there were kids in the waiting room, and they were taking chemotherapy. And I thought, you selfish asshole, you do not get a free ride in life. You do not get peace and serenity and happiness and no challenge in your life. These poor kids are fighting for their life. You need to get over it. Why not you? You're not special. So I went from this reality of, being a victim, being entitled to smooth sailing, to like, okay, now I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to and I ended up having both hips replaced at 30. But moving from out of that victim mentality, and we can all fall into it, moving from a victim mentality to being an agent in your own life is one of the best things I could tell people to do. Because
I agree with
no
you.
progress happens from victimhood.
Very much so. I agree that you really should feel like you're the pilot of your life, not a passenger being taken for a ride. You've got to take control of it. In your book, you mention about changing your screen, the lens through which you see the world. Now, that's something I just discussed a little bit now. What's one mindset screen people are unconsciously wearing that holds them back financially, Mark?
I think overall it's scarcity.
Yes.
Money is hard to get, hard to make, hard to invest, and only a rare few will ever make it.
Mm-hmm.
And those people that do make it are greedy and arrogant and whatever other tags to add to it, greedy capitalists or whatever. And that prohibits people from playing big and taking risk and helping other people. And at the same time, it makes them self-righteous about it. Not only does it make them play small, but then they get to be self-righteous about their smallness and blame other people that have been successful. This filter of scarcity versus a filter of abundance. And I can think early in my career when I call them money demons. And I had 3 employees. And my goal was to have a huge billion-dollar company with tons of employees and help tons of investors all over the United States. So I realized that I had a money demon, which was employees are expensive, they're hard to manage, they're hard to direct, they're not committed, I can do it better myself. And so I was blaming, and there are no good ones out there. And so I was blaming the employees and had a very nasty view, a screen, if you will, about employees. And then I recognized that if I kept that screen in place, I would never be able to. We have 80 employees today, 500 financial advisors, 35,000 clients. If I didn't get rid of that screen, then I was doomed to never have a real company and never grow. And so I looked at that and said, well, it can't be true that there are no good employees. There's some companies with 10,000 employees. So what I need to do is look at myself and say, what do I need to do to create a culture that's not their fault? It's my fault. I need to create a culture that people would be driven to and be attracted to. And I need to pay top dollar so I can get the best people. And then I need to be a great manager and motivator. And that's all on me. And I can control that part of it.
Yes.
And then if I do end up having some flubs and some bad people that aren't a good fit, then fire them fast and get new people. But that changes everything. Employees suck. 2 employees are awesome. And that switch gave me the ability to create the company I got today.
Interestingly, as you were talking, I was thinking about here in Australia at the moment, there's a very much an us and them mentality. I've never seen it as bad, where people are now calling property investors, and most people listening to this show in Australia are interested in real estate investment or are real estate investors. And there's some who can't at the moment. Of housing is a bit more unaffordable, and so they're seeing investors as ugly, greedy landlords. So thus and them mentality is very much here in Australia as well. But getting back to your theme of money demons, thank you for being open and sharing one of yours. What are some of the common ones you see amongst ordinary people? How do they play out in everyday people?
There are 3 primary money demons when it comes to investing for people, when it comes to investing in equities. Number 1, they think they have to pick the best stocks, so they have to stock pick. Number 2 is they think they have to have some kind of prediction to get them in and out of the market at the right time. And given that it's very difficult to do both of those things, if they can't do that, then they think they have to have somebody that got lucky over the last 10 years or 20 years, and they're going to trust him with the money. And you mentioned Harry Dent and so forth. Look, I tell investors, all the knowable and predictable information about stock prices are already in the price today. Therefore, only unknowable and random new information changes prices going forward. Equities are a long-term, they're a great wealth creator. Without them, we wouldn't have government because we have to pay the taxes. That keeps the government going. All the jobs, all the amazing technology, all the real estate. Capitalism and capital is the foundation of free markets. And without them, we'd be, living, in feudal systems 5,000 years old. And it would doom hundreds of millions of people to death and destruction. Mentioning the real estate, I think the thing in the United States, and I'm almost sure in Australia, is that private property is the foundation of entrepreneurism. And that's what creates value for other people. If you take away private property, they may not like the rent. They may not like it that they have to work harder for another 5 years to get a house. But if you take away private property, that means the government owns the property. And if the government owns the property, you're going to see a disaster. People are going to be living in filth and disgusting situations like they are in San Francisco, LA, New York City. You'll have homelessness. You'll have destruction. So I'll always take an entrepreneur over a government bureaucratic official. And private property is one of the keys to wealth creation in all societies.
Now, I agree with you that shares, the stock market is a great way to invest as well. I've always advocated a mixture of investment assets. And clearly what we're discussing now is not personal investment advice, but you've got this big picture concept of academic investing over speculation, something I agree with. What's one of the big myths that the average person still believes about investing?
They believe that you need a forecast. They believe that I either need an economic forecast about what's going to happen in the economy, or I have to have a political prediction about what's going to happen. And based on those 2 things, then I can somehow predict what the market's going to do or what stocks will do really well in the future. And a Nobel Prize winning concept, I've worked with Dr. Fama, a Nobel Prize winner for over 30 years. Efficient market theory says that all that information is already in the price. Therefore, it's only random going forward. So you look at asset categories. So large U.S. stocks, for example, have averaged 10% historically. Small value stocks have averaged 14%, but you just have to own all of them. International stocks, like this year, for example, international value stocks, including Australia, are up over 30%. And the U.S. market's only up 9%. So they don't understand how to diversify. They don't understand how to rebalance. They don't understand how to engineer the portfolio. And they're falling for garbage from their broker-dealer or for prognosticators, I call them Wall Street bullies, who tell you that they have some kind of prognostication. And guess what, Michael, if they had a prognostication, it was accurate, they'd never tell you. They'd keep all the information for themselves.
Well, clearly we see all the experts' forecasts being wrong over and over again. I know the average person wonders why, when these experts have got all this information, all this research, do they get it wrong? So I'm very much in agreement with what you're saying. In your writings, you're suggesting that people should spend 95% or so of their time thinking about the problem and only 5% of the answer. What do you mean by that? How does this approach the way you make financial decisions, Mark?
Yeah. Einstein famously said if he had to solve a problem in an hour, he'd spend 95% of the time on the problem and only 5 minutes, 5% of the time on the solution. If you don't understand, you can't solve a problem from the level of thinking that created the problem. So we live in a challenging time for entrepreneurs, business owners, and employees of companies because AI is changing things at a faster and faster pace.
Isn't it?
And it's a big danger that a lot of jobs that exist right now, I'm telling advisors and other people that if I don't miss my guess, in 5 years, 75% of the financial advisors that exist in the world won't be in business because AI can do everything. It can build portfolios. It can theoretically rebalance them. It can replace programming. You can tell it what to do, and it does programming. It does videos. I think people. I know it's a big topic, but I think for the most part, people are underestimating its full impact that it's going to have. So therefore, as a human being, you have to be focused on what only a human being can do that can never be replaced by a computer. Because if you don't, then you're going to be in a sad situation in the next 5 to 10 years.
Interesting. Now, getting back to one of your previous concepts, the difference between rich people and financially fulfilled people, what's that? What's the big difference? Because a lot of people have money, but they're not happy, are they?
No, they're not. Life is potentially full of suffering. People get cancer. Kids have to go to rehab. People lose their jobs. I was in a workshop one day with a man that had worked his whole life. He had $15 million in Boeing stock. We talked about the academic principles behind investing. He rejected those. He kept all of his money in Boeing stock. Then they engineered planes that wrecked themselves literally into the ocean, doors flying off of the planes, whistleblowers coming out. They had recently had one just last week that blew up. An engine caught on fire midair. So he, worked all his life to create all this money, and then he loses like $7-8 million overnight. And that kind of loss creates emotional struggle. If you look at people that invested with Madoff here in the United States, those people lost $65 billion. Some of them killed themselves. They literally hung themselves. Yes. Suicide. So, I mean, this money thing is serious business. Most people are using their subconscious mind, not their conscious mind. They're not using facts, statistics, and data. They think they're like Spock when they make financial decisions. They're much more like Kirk, making really emotional decisions all the time, hoping they work out right.
I love the Star Trek analogy. I'm an old fan of Star Trek as well, Mark. So getting back to your initial concept, you suggested money should serve a purpose, not the other way around. Can you walk us through how somebody could shift their mindset to think that way now?
Yeah. So what I encourage them to do, first of all, I coach them to where to look for the purpose. The purpose isn't, and sometimes you define a thing by what it's not. A purpose isn't something you're born with. There's no like purpose organ anywhere that you can identify or point to. A purpose isn't out there. It's not like, okay, well, my purpose is retirement in Boca Raton, in Florida when I get old enough. It's not an amount of money. It's not, well, when I get 10 million, then I'll be really happy and fulfilled. It's not material things. It's not greed. It's not possessions. And I describe it this way. What could you take on with the rest of your life? And I do this little thing in my workshops where I say, people, what are your fears? And they're afraid of dying. They're afraid of running out of money. And in essence, they're afraid of being able to make it. Yes. And I tell them, I said, how many of you guys think you're going to make it? And the optimists will always say, yeah, we'll make it. And I'm like, no, you're not going to make it. The statistics on death are impressive. It's 100%. You're not going to make it, out alive from this world. So then the question has to be, well, what am I going to do with my life that would give it meaning? And if you ask yourself, okay, you create and you brainstorm it, you come up with all these different possible meanings and purposes for your life. And then when you find one where you could answer the question, if I lived my life in this way, would I be motivated and passionate about my own life? And once you find the answer to that question where you could say, yes, I would say I had lived an adventurous, amazing life, an extraordinary life if I lived it for this purpose. Once you can find that, then you've got it. And sometimes it's about faith, or it's about service, or it's about love, or it's about charity. There's virtually unlimited types of purpose. And I try not to guide people to the purpose, but let them explore it and discover it for themselves.
Well, Mark, you mentioned that if people want to appreciate their own country's opportunities, whether it's in the United States or here in Australia, they should visit places without freedom. What would your final message be for Australians who feel stuck, or more of those who currently feel cynical about what's going on in the world?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to realize that there's a benefit of being cynical. And that is you get to bitch and moan and complain about your life. And you get to try to find people to buy into it and feel sorry for you. And getting people to feel sorry for you is a drug, and it's a very seductive drug. Now, it makes your life miserable and it makes your life small. What you want to understand is even if that was true, even if it was true, which it's not, by the way, whether it's Australia or the United States, it doesn't serve you to think that way. And if and we went to, I took my kids to Bora Bora, and of course there's the island with the Four Seasons, and it's beautiful. And I said, we're going to get in a Jeep, we're going to get on a boat, we're going to go over to the big island where all the people live here, and we're going to drive around the island. And my kids, their eyes were big as saucers. They were like, oh my gosh, this is how people live? I'm like, yeah, this is how people live in the world. This is how they live. You live better than 99.999% of all the people in the whole world that's ever existed. And if you want to get a feel for that, two things: go up in an airplane, fly around your own country, and look at all the wealth and prosperity outside of the window of that plane. When you look down at the ground and you look at the cities and you look at the farms and you look at the prosperity, and then go to a country like Venezuela, go to Russia, go to China, not the big cities. There's over 1 billion people. Go where the people live. And pretty soon, go to Mexico. You take the family to Cabo at the resort. Well, you leave the resort and you go downtown Mexico, downtown Cabo, and you'll find a whole nother story, and you'll see how people are really living. And then
You're reminding me of at Christmas time, Pam and I went on a cruise around the Philippines, and big cities, Manila, big cities. And then we went to an island, and the guide there said, people here don't have a refrigerator. And not because they can't afford them. They can't, if they had one, they couldn't afford the electricity to run their refrigerator. So they were still today living a subsistence existence. The fisherman would trade his fish for the farmer who was growing some rice. And it really brought the message home how lucky we are.
Brilliant. Yeah, I tell my kids, I said, look, there are people in the world right now that are children that are being sold into sex slavery.
Yes.
There are people that are being trafficked. I mean, there's horrible, terrible things going on. Why don't we spend some time trying to help those people instead of worrying about our petty little complaints? And that would make our lives a lot better.
Well, Mark, I really enjoyed our chat because basically you've told us we've got to slay our money demons and appreciate our life because we can build a better life. And it is a time of real change. For those watching this, listening to this, I hope that conversation with Mark affected you as much as it did with me. Boy, there was a lot to take in, from refining your relationship with money to embracing coachability. Mark, I know you believe a lot in coaching, understanding your inner money demons. They could be sabotaging your goals. So I'm going to leave a link to Mark's book in the show notes because I've read it. I've been given an opportunity to read it, and I'm sure that those watching, listening are going to get a lot from this as well. See, Mark, what really stood out to me was that money should serve a purpose, not the other way around. That's something I often see in successful investors. They're not just chasing returns, they're building something bigger for the future, something meaningful. And I think while the language of the American dream may not quite land here in Australia, your message, Mark, certainly does, because deep down we all want the same thing: stability, freedom, purpose, and the ability to create value for our family and communities. So again, if you're interested in Mark's book, Experiencing the American Dream, I'll leave a link in the show notes. You can buy it on Amazon. It's real easy. And while the title may not reflect it, I believe the message is universal. Hey, and if you enjoyed this episode and you got some insights or even just a new way to think about money, I'd love it if you shared this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast with somebody who needs to hear it. And remember, whether your dreams include property, business, early retirement, or simply peace of mind, it's not just about what you own, it's about who you become along the way. So once again, Mark, thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thanks, Michael. It was an absolute pleasure. I've been to Australia. It's a beautiful place and a wonderful country.
We're very lucky. Yes, I believe, like you do, we're living in the best time in history and in the best time in the place in the world. So I think we're even in a slightly better place than America. Thanks for your time.
You got it. My pleasure.
If you're a regular viewer or listener to my podcast, you know that each show I have a property trivia quiz. I ask you a question and I ask you to go to propertytrivia.com.au, enter your answer, and each week 3 correct answers win a hard copy of one of my books. Don't worry if you're listening to an older episode, your entry is still going to count, and you're going to get a copy of Michael Yardney's Guide to Investing. And I've actually updated the report everybody who leaves an answer is going to get. This week's question, a little bit more complicated, but shouldn't be at all hard. If a property is described as having a north-facing backyard in Australia, why is that considered desirable? Why is a north-facing backyard in Australia considered desirable? Go to propertytrivia.com.au, leave us your answer. You'll get a free report and a chance to win Michael Yardney's Guide to Investing Successfully. The year's running away fast from us, isn't it? So I want to ask you, you're 100% satisfied where 2025 has taken you? Did it bring you closer to your property investment or your financial freedom goals? Now, it's possible that all the confused messages in the media have made it a bit harder for you. Maybe the bank's lending policies have been a bit difficult. Maybe you're a bit stuck, struggling to make sense of all the mixed messages in the media. Maybe you just weren't sure if the timing was right. Well, look, no matter where you've gone so far in 2025, if you're a home buyer or a property investor, what are you going to do to make next year, 2026, even better? Because our housing markets are going to be very, very different in the coming year. If you'd like to prepare for that period of strong property growth as we move to the next phase of the property cycle, as interest rates are going to keep falling, as the first home buyer grants kick in, as confidence keeps returning, why not set yourself up by having a wealth discovery call with one of our wealth strategists at Metropole? Just go to metropole.com.au. I'll leave a link in the show note. Award-winning team is much more than just another buyer's agent. We help our clients safely grow into generational wealth through property and wealth advice. We're big enough to tip the scales in your favour, but still small enough to care. So whether you're just getting started or wanting to grow your portfolio, our team can help you. Go to metropole.com.au.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
In my mindset message today, I want to give you permission to let go. Let go. You've already failed at being perfect. The harder you try, the more you beat yourself up when you inevitably fall short. So my suggestion is stop trying to be everything you're not and start being everything you really are. Just show up and be better than you were yesterday. That's good enough. The other lesson I'd like to point out is if everything is a priority, nothing is. You don't have time to do everything, but you always have time to do the most important things. So why don't you each morning write down, or the night before, your 5 daily most important tasks? Again, in this message of asking you to let go, I'm going to say go ugly early. Your prefrontal cortex, the execution function of the brain, is like a battery that gets drained through the day. Morning is, for most people, when your brain is charged and ready to make the tough decisions that require lots of brain power. Have the crucial conversations that you're going to need to have during the day first. The more you tell yourself you've got all the time you need, the more likely it is that you're going to give yourself that time. One day you're going to wake up and realize you should have started 10 years ago. So I guess the final message I'd like to share with you in this mindset mentorship session today is life doesn't come with unlimited number of tomorrows. The best time to have started was yesterday. The second best time is now. So let go. You don't have to be perfect. Just turn up and get things done. Thank you for spending the last little while with me. I hope you got some benefit from this show. But before you move on to the next podcast you're going to listen to, let me remind you I have another show that I produce once a week with leading demographer Simon Kirstenmacher. We call that Demographics Decoded, where Simon and I unveil the trends that are going to shape your future. In my mind, this is a must-listen-to podcast for anyone interested in property investment, but also for business people and entrepreneurs. So if you don't currently subscribe to Demographics Decoded, just please stop for a second and subscribe on your podcast app where you're listening to this, or on YouTube. And of course, if you don't subscribe to this show, the Michael Yardney podcast, why not click the link that says follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. So twice a week, you're going to get benefit from my guests and me. And I'd like to ask you a little favour, please. If you did enjoy today's show and you know somebody who would also benefit, please tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast and Demographics Decoded. There's a share button on every podcast app. On Apple Podcasts, there are 3 little buttons at the top of the player. Well, just tell them about it. Just have a chat with them. Now, I hope you're going to be doing them a favour, and you're definitely going to be doing me a favour in my quest to help as many people as possible to become financially literate. And by the way, I've got a special bonus for you. As my way of saying thank you for subscribing, just go to podcastbonus.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where I've got a bunch of ebooks and reports. It's just my way of saying thank you for taking the time to listen. And remember, the information that we give you in this podcast is general information, not specific information about your personal circumstances, because we don't know about them. But if you do want specific information, you can always have a chat with my team at Metropole. Go to metropole.com.au. If you really want to learn more, you can always listen to the previous podcast, the many episodes we've already published. Just go back to the old episodes, which each have lessons about property investment, success, and money. Once again, thanks for listening to today's show.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael, but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?